Um, so today's class, I want to thank you for joining. The theme of today's class is Asteya, and what that translates to is non-stealing. So when you hear that, you may have a reaction like, cool, I don't steal things. I don't take things from stores. I'm not, participating in theft, which is great. But the meaning of that word can go a little bit deeper as it applies to yogic philosophy and the ways that this ethical restraint shows up in your life. So not only is it the non-stealing of material goods, but it also includes non-stealing of other people's time, of other people's energy, of their ideas and their thoughts and the work that they put out there into the world. In particular, it's important to, if you're benefiting from somebody's work, to acknowledge the work that they have put in for your benefit. So if you have teachers, people who have shown you the way, not claiming that work as solely your own, but product of a whole line of teachers who have helped bring you to that point. And for this class, it's important to keep that idea of non-stealing in mind, right? Like we don't want to take things that are not ours, but to put kind of a more positive spin on it and a different way to look at it, there's a train, is to think about generosity as kind of the opposite of stealing, right? So you are giving as much as you are receiving. So having generosity in spirit, and kind of keeping that in mind as you practice the art of being non-stealing. So to that point, today's class will be focused on heart opening sequences. So we're going to be doing a lot of chest and heart opening to open that space of generosity. And we will also be focusing on the sacral chakra, which if you were part of the foundations class, you may remember is the seat of expression, but also the seat of boundaries. And in the context of this class, I'd like you to kind of keep in mind not only the boundaries that you have with other people, but the boundaries that you set with yourself and the ways in which you engage with the world and with other people and with the things that you are benefiting from. So with that in mind, I'll invite you to, with your hands, create the lotus mudra. So if you haven't done this before, it's kind of like you're holding a bowl and you press those pinky fingers, the thumbs, and the bottom parts of the hands together. Bring that to heart center. You can close your eyes or gently look down towards the ground and begin to focus on your breath. While you're doing that, I'm going to move to my mat so I can join you there. Continue to breathe. And start to send your energy into that lotus mudra, focusing on the warmth and the generosity that exists in your heart right now. From here, you can slowly lower those hands down to your lap and open the eyes. We'll begin with some gentle stretching here in this seated pose. If you find it difficult to sit on the ground for long periods of time, whether it's your hips or your back, I would encourage you to either take one of your blocks or take a couple pillows and elevate those hips. So you're kind of sitting, I'll demonstrate here. You're sitting on the block so that your knees are a little bit lower than your hips. All right, so from here, breathe in nice and deep into that heart space. Take your hands and place each on one knee. Inhale nice and tall. And then exhale as you twist to the left and grab that left knee with the right hand. Inhale back through center. Exhale, twist to the right. Gently pulling with that left hand. Inhale back through center. We'll do that a couple more times. Exhale to the left. Inhale through center. Exhale to the right. Inhale through center. One more time. Exhale to the left. Inhale through center. Exhale to the right. Inhale through center. And come back to stillness. Now take your right arm up into the sky and gently bend over to the left, supporting yourself with that left hand. Really feel a nice long side body stretch. If it's comfortable, you can look down at that left hand. Breathe here. Exhale and inhale back up to center. And exhale, reach that left hand high and over to the right. Again, looking down at that right hand, if it feels okay on the neck. Really nice long side body stretch through the left side. Inhale back through center. And we'll do a couple of gentle neck stretches. So taking that right hand, placing it on the outside of the left side of the head. Gently tug the head to the right as you point your left fingertips down towards the mat. Looking straight ahead, not straining the neck, but gently stretching it out. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, come back through center. Release that right hand down and stretch through the opposite side, gently pulling towards the left. Fingertips pointing down towards the mat. Inhale back through center. Now take your arms in cactus position. Elbows bent, fingertips pointing up towards the sky. Inhale as you open the chest and look up. And then exhale as you bring your palms together around the back and look down. Inhale, look up. Widen the arms, drawing those elbows together, drawing back. And exhale as you round that back, drawing your palms together, looking down. Do this a few more times. Inhale, look up, drawing the elbows back towards the back of the room. And exhale, round the back and look down. Inhale one more time. And exhale, bring your hands together. Bring your palms fully together. Come back to neutral spine, hands at heart center. Close the eyes. And from here, I'll ask you to set the intention for class today. As today's theme is non-stealing, I'd ask you or invite you to focus on the ways in which you can practice non-stealing in your own life. If you have another intention that you would like to set for class today, feel free to do so now. Take a nice big inhale. And exhale, you can set those hands down. We'll meet in tabletop pose. So come to your hands and your knees. Take whatever movement feels necessary from this position. Maybe swinging those hips from side to side or taking some more cat-cow. Whatever feels right for you. And as you're doing that, I'm going to give you a challenge of sorts for this class. So one of the ideas behind non-stealing is to avoid taking from others that which you can find within yourself. When it comes to practicing on the mat, stealing may look like trying to basically take on the form of another person who's in class with you. So today, I would invite you to look within and find that which is within you that makes your practice what it is. Don't try to avoid taking from others in this virtual space. Do what is right for you. And to assist with this, if you'd like an extra challenge, I invite you to close your eyes through however much of this practice you feel comfortable, so that you're going within rather than focusing on the others around you. All right, let's come to stillness in our tabletop pose. Come to a neutral spine. And on your exhale, push back with your hips coming to your heels into child's pose. Drawing your forehead towards the mat. If you'd like a deeper stretch and you have 2 blocks available, or 2 pillows, 2 whatever that might elevate your hands, you can place your hands on those blocks to create an additional stretch in those shoulders and to open up that heart space. If that doesn't feel nice on your shoulders, if you've got pain, you're also invited to take those arms down along the sides to grab for those heels. Inhale back to tabletop position. From here, we're going to move into a deeper shoulder and chest stretch. If this doesn't feel good for you, you're invited to come back to child's pose. We're going to move into the heart melting pose. So to take this pose, your first option is to place your forearms on the mat, keeping your thighs vertical so that your legs are mostly straight up and down. Inch your hands forward and start to melt your chest towards the mat. In this position, your bum will be up in the air, your chest will be melting down towards the ground, forehead coming toward the ground. If you'd like an additional stretch, you can take those blocks and place them beneath your biceps. Grabbing your hands together and releasing the pointer finger and pressing that chest back down towards the mat. Take whatever variation feels good for you. We're going to hold here for several rounds of breath. And I'll ask you as you inhale to send the energy of your breath to that heart space, igniting the generosity that you have within. and your own inner knowledge. Very nice. The next pose that we're going to move into is Sphinx pose. So to get into this pose from the heart melting pose, come up to a forearm tabletop position. So instead of being on your hands and knees, you're on your forearms and your knees. And then one by one, send your legs long and straight, pressing into those elbows. Lift the chest so that you're looking straight ahead. Should have a nice curve in the lower spine. If this doesn't feel good to you, feel free to move back into any of the other poses that we've practiced so far. And with your eyes closed, if they are closed, I'd ask you to focus in on the inner sensations rather than being concerned with whether or not it looks okay, or if you're doing this pose in the same way that others are. I'd ask you to focus on how it feels for you. And breathe here. If you find that your ears are getting closer to your shoulders, no worries, just gently press into those elbows to lift your ears out of the shoulders, sitting nice and tall in the Sphinx pose. The next pose that we're going to go into is seal pose. This is a bit of a deeper stretch. It's similar to up dog, except you're keeping your thighs and your shins and your feet on the mat. If this is pinching the lower back too much, you can stay in Sphinx pose or move back into heart melting or child's pose. To get into Sphinx pose, place your hands close to your rib cage with your fingers kind of rotating outward. So your pointer fingers are pointing towards the corners of the mat. Straighten those arms. Again, keeping those thighs on the mat. You're lifting your chest and supporting yourself with those arms. Again here, avoid letting your shoulders creep up into your ears. Really press through those palms and breathe. Few more rounds of breath here, really sending that energy into that heart center. And on the exhale, slowly lower down, curl those toes under, and then press yourself up into plank pose. Hold here for just a breath. And exhale into downward facing dog. Downward facing dog is another really great pose to focus on opening that heart space, both on the front side of the body and also the back side of the body. So instead of focusing on the chest, send your attention to your shoulders. Try to create a little bit of space between the shoulder blades. Press that space toward the ceiling. It may help to take those hands and very slightly rotate them outward once again so that your pointer fingers are pointed toward the top corners of your mat. Inhale here. And exhale as you press that chest just a little bit further toward the thighs, working toward opening that front part of the chest now. From here, we're going to briefly move into dolphin pose. This is similar to that forearm tabletop, but instead of bringing your knees down, you're simply going to place your forearms on the ground and keep your pelvis lifted. So you're basically in a forearm downward facing dog. Breathe here for 3 rounds of breath. Again, I invite you to keep those eyes closed unless you're looking for direction on what the pose is actually supposed to be. But don't worry too much about whether or not it looks perfect. And on your next exhale, push back into downward facing dog. Hold here briefly. Inhale. Exhale, come forward into high plank pose. Inhale. Exhale, back to downward facing dog. And inhale, step both feet forward, come into a forward fold. Give yourself a rest. You can sway from side to side, perhaps grab opposite elbows. Now inhale to halfway lift. And from here, I'll invite you to, well, we have a few options. So you can grab your hands behind your back, interlacing those fingers and straightening those arms out. If that doesn't feel good on those shoulders or those elbows, you can interlace your fingers, place them on the sacrum, and as you're in that halfway lift, draw your elbows together to open the chest. So either option. And then on your exhale, fold forward. You're going to hold here for 3 breaths. On your next exhale, gently release those hands. Come back into forward fold. Inhale all the way up to Tadasana, mountain pose. Grabbing your hands overhead, releasing those pointer fingers and reaching nice and tall. And now exhale, release those hands, bring your arms back to cactus. Really feel that energy being sent to your heart space. You can draw those elbows a little bit further back towards the back side of the room and look up for a gentle back bend. From here, step that left foot back and come into Warrior One pose. So here you have a few more options with your hands. You can keep your arms in cactus pose. You may also lift those hands up towards the sky. Option to bring hands to heart center. Or you can also grab those hands behind the back and open the chest a little bit more. Breathe here. Inhale, reach a little bit higher, press that chest a little bit further towards the ceiling, really open up that heart space. And on the exhale, straighten that front leg. And slowly fold forward over that front leg to come into pyramid pose. You still have the option to have those arms behind the back. You can bring them to heart center or simply allow your fingertips to come to the mat. Really feel that generous stretch in the right hamstring. We're going to hold here for a few breaths. Again, take notice of how you're feeling inside. Are you wishing that you could look differently, do differently, look like somebody else? Maybe your virtual neighbor's doing it the way that you wish you could. That's okay. No worries if your mind goes there, it's pretty natural. I'd invite you to draw your thoughts and your energy back in towards yourself, to your inherent knowledge and the knowledge of your body. From your pyramid pose, we're going to come into low lunge. So rebend that front leg. You can bring those fingertips down to the mat. If you've got blocks to support yourself, feel free to grab those as well. Inhale here. And then exhale, set that left knee down, untuck the toes. Placing your right hand on that right knee. Gently twist and look over the right shoulder. Really stretching through the hips. Twisting the spine. Energizing the heart space. Got a lot going on here. Inhale. And exhale. Now bringing your hands, both of them, back down towards the mat. Take that right hand, put it inside the right foot, and step back into downward facing dog. Again, take a few moments to play around here with the front and back side of your heart space. Play around with the positioning of your hands, opening up that shoulder space. And on your next exhale, come down into dolphin pose. Again, that's like the forearm downward facing dog. Really focus on pressing that chest gently toward the thighs to open up that front chest space. And breathe here. On your next inhale, come back into your downward facing dog. Inhale and exhale, come forward to plank pose. Hold here, really strengthening through all parts of the body. And exhale back to downward facing dog. Inhale, step both feet forward, come into forward fold. Again, option to take opposite shoulders and opposite hands, swing from side to side. Find the movement that feels good. And come back to stillness. Inhale to halfway lift. And find the position for hands behind the back that feels good for you. Again, you can either clasp your hands and lift them up, or you can set those hands on the sacrum. Inhale, and then exhale, fold forward. We're going to hold here for 3 breath cycles. On your exhale, gently release the hands, come back into forward fold. Inhale all the way to stand, Tadasana. Your hands overhead. And once again, take those cactus arms. Breathing into the heart space as you open. Look up towards the sky. Inhale and exhale. From this pose, step that right foot back, come into warrior one, taking any of the modifications for the hands that you please. Again, that's overhead, cactus arms, hands at heart center, or hands behind the back. Inhale, nice and tall. And exhale, straighten out that left leg, folding forward to come into pyramid pose. Inhale. And exhale, come into that low lunge, grabbing the blocks again if needed. We'll stay here with that back leg lifted for just a moment. And exhale, set that right knee down. Taking that left hand to left knee. And pressing as you twist. And look over that left shoulder. Inhale. And exhale, look back down to the mat. Set that left hand on the inside of the left foot. Curl those back toes under, lift the leg, and step back into downward facing dog. Inhale, step both feet forward. Come into forward fold. And inhale all the way up to stand in Tadasana. All right, so this is a pose where it might be a little hard to keep your eyes closed, but I invite you to, if you'd like to try. We're going to move into tree pose. So to get into tree pose, I'll invite you to first start by just kickstanding that right foot, really grounding through that left leg. And then turn that knee out to the side so that your toes are still on the ground and your heel is up by your calf muscle. From here, if you'd like to practice closing the eyes, do so now with your right toes still on the ground. See how it feels. Bring your hands to heart center to balance yourself. Notice even for myself, with my toes on the ground, I still wobble from side to side. Now if you'd like, you can slowly move that right foot further and further up, that left leg. Being careful not to press your foot into that left knee. It's not a very stable joint when it's being pushed from side to side. And exhale, slowly lower that right foot down. We'll practice with this on the opposite side. So kickstanding that left foot nice and strong through the right leg. Bringing heel to calf muscle. Start here. If you'd like to practice with closing the eyes and finding your balance, do so now. Remember, this is your practice, not anybody else's. Let it be what it is for you. And allow others to have their own practice as well. If you'd like to gradually inch that left foot further up the right leg, feel free to do so now. You may find that your balance is a little different on this side, and that's okay. And exhale, go ahead and set that left foot down. Nice work. So from here, step your feet nice and wide with your toes pointed slightly outward. We're going to come into a quick wide-legged forward fold. Place your hands on the hips. Inhale, nice and tall. And then exhale as you fold forward at the hips. You can bring your fingertips down to the ground. If you'd like, you can grab one of your blocks and set it beneath your forehead so that this can be a slightly more restorative pose. You can use the block for support if it's available to you. You can even stack 2 blocks if one block is not quite high enough for you. Now inhale to a halfway lift. You can move those blocks out of the way if you were using them. Slowly toe heel your feet together so that they're a little bit wider than your outer hip width. Keeping those fingertips on the ground, start to bend those knees and come into squat pose. This is another pose where you can use those blocks. If you need some extra support, if you need to sit on those blocks, totally fine. This pose is very activating for both the root chakra and that second chakra, which we talked about at the beginning, is where your creativity lies, but also your sense of boundaries. So really take a moment here to feel through what this pose is like for you. What boundaries does it push for you, if any? And exhale, set those fingers on the mat, extend the legs, toe heel those feet together, come into forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, step back into downward facing dog. Inhale and lift your right leg high. And then exhale as you bring that right leg forward with your right knee behind your right hand and that foot coming up close to the left hand. We're coming into pigeon pose. If this doesn't feel good on that knee, that's totally fine. You can come into supine pigeon pose. I'll demonstrate it for you now. Supine pigeon pose, you come to your back. Take that right leg, bend it, place that ankle on left knee. And then grab on either the inside or the outside of that left knee. Still get a very nice stretch through that right thigh. And to protect your knee, you can flex that right foot, pointing the toes back towards the knee. For those of you who are in non-supine pigeon, I invite you to fold forward so that you bring your forearms down to the mat. If that's too much of a stretch, you can take those blocks and place them underneath your forearms for a little bit more height, or simply keep yourself in the upright position. If you're in that forward fold, gently press yourself back up. The upright pigeon pose. Inhale here. And exhale, curl those back toes under. Lift that back knee and step back into downward facing dog. Inhale, lift that left leg high. And exhale as you bring that leg forward, come into pigeon pose on the left side. Again, that's with that left knee coming up next to left hand. Working that foot up toward the right hand, but no worries if it can't quite reach it. That's a pretty intense stretch. And once again, you're invited to take supine pigeon if this doesn't feel good on your knees. If you took the forward fold on the other side, feel free to do so now. And if you're in that forward folded pigeon, or any variation thereof, really start to focus on the sensation of drawing your own energy inward. Forward folds and inversions really help us to draw our own energy inward rather than sending it out or inviting other energy in. When it comes to being non-stealing, this is another way that I would invite you to think about really focusing on your own energy, focusing on the lessons that your own body is teaching you and your inherent knowledge. At the same time, I would invite you to acknowledge and appreciate all of the people who have come before you, all of your teachers, your influences. Really take the time to appreciate them for what they've been able to help you do in your life. Now, if you're in that forward fold, gently press up to the upright pigeon pose. Inhale. And exhale, come back into that downward facing dog. Last downward facing dog of class. Take a moment to reflect on whether this downward facing dog feels any different than the first one. And on your exhale, come down into tabletop pose and gently swing things around, come down into a seated position with your legs out in front of you. So this is where those pillows or blankets are going to come handy. For me, I think I'm going to use 2 pillows, but you may want to play around with this. We're going to do supine bound angle pose. So if you've done cobbler pose before, cobbler is where you're seated upright. You've got your feet together, your legs are kind of in a diamond shape, and you fold forward. Well, in supine bound angle, instead of folding forward, your feet are still in this diamond pose, and you're going to lay down on these pillows and allow your knees to fall open. Now this is a pretty intense hip opener, so if it doesn't feel super comfy on those hips, you're welcome to take blocks or additional pillows and set them underneath the thighs to support your knees. This isn't supposed to be a painful pose. There is a stretch with it, but if it's pinching and hurting and you find it really difficult, do what you have to do to make it comfortable. And when you're down on the ground, you can take your hands and your arms along the sides of your body with your palms facing up towards the ceiling. In this pose, start to focus your energy back on that heart center, building your generosity and your gratitude, both for yourself and for others who have come before you. We'll hold in this pose for just a little while to allow you the opportunity to really sink in and open both the hips and the heart. A nice deep inhale and exhale. Inhale one more time, nice and deep. And exhale as you draw your knees together. Push yourself up. And remove those pillows, set them aside. And then we'll come right back down to our mats to do some supine twists. So keeping your knees bent, shift the pelvis over to the left side. I invite you to take your arms in cactus position to keep that heart center open as you let your legs and your knees fall over to the right. Inhale back through center, shifting the pelvis over to the right, and allowing those knees to fall to the left. Inhale your knees back through center. Draw those knees in towards the chest, wrapping your hands around the knees. Inhale and exhale. Inhale one more time. And exhale, lift the forehead towards the knees. From this position, inhale as deeply as you can. A little bit deeper. And exhale, send all of your limbs out long for Shavasana. Find whatever you need to be comfortable in Shavasana. You've got some pillows nearby, hopefully, or maybe a blanket, so feel free to set those pillows underneath your knees, underneath your head. Make yourself comfortable so that you can fully relax into the pose. And while you're in Shavasana, I invite you to focus on the sensation at your heart center. Whether that is the sensation of your heart beating, or just the general warmth and loving kindness that is generating from that spot. Draw your attention there and send the breath to that spot. Slowly begin to deepen your breath. Bring small movements back into your fingers and your toes. Roll over to the left side. And then using that top hand, gently press into the ground and come to a seated position. Your eyes still closed or gently looking down towards your nose. And bring your hands back to that lotus mudra. If you're cradling a small animal, a gentle little animal in your hands. And breathe here. I'd like you to bring to mind the image of an influential teacher that you've had in your life, someone who has positively influenced you as a person, someone whose teachings have gotten you where you are today. Really focus on that person, the image of their face. Take note of how you feel when you see this person's image in your mind's eye. And with that energy that you are collecting at heart center, inhale nice and deep. And on the exhale, send that loving energy and generosity and gratitude toward that person in your mind's eye. Inhale, build up more generosity in those hands. And exhale, send that generosity and gratitude back out to that person. And continue with this loving exchange for the next several breaths. And now you can release the Lotus Mudra and bring your hands to heart center, palms together. Rub those palms together to create some heat. And wherever on your body needs a little bit of TLC, send your hands there now. And bring your hands back to heart center. The teacher and the light in me sees the teacher and the light in all of you. I appreciate all of the things that you have taught to me in my time up here on this virtual stage, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining today. Take care. All right, everybody. That is the class.